cameras with the NSA.
We have identified some very, very interesting anomalous type of aircraft.
The traffic is quite luminous and is exhibiting some non-ballistic motion. Over.
Move very rapidly at any speed or whether any direction it wanted to go. Why it could change and go to the right or the left or go crossways without hesitating a bit.
What do you think it was?
Well, if they call it a flying saucer, that's what it is.
EWA 517, do you want to report a UFO? Over. Negative. We don't want to report.
Look, it wasn't my worst Wednesday night.
Hello, everyone. This is Smiles Lewis. Welcome to another live edition of Anomaly Now, straight out of Austin, Texas. This is the weekly live news media roundup for the 501c3 Anomaly Archives Scientific Anomaly Institute, headquartered here in Austin, Texas. It is Wednesday, November 29th, 2023. I really hope that you all had wonderful holidays with the Thanksgiving festivities. Such a sometimes trying time of year for folks. Time to get around the table and talk about sex, religion, and politics. Isn't that the important stuff? All the good, sacred, and profane things. Well, let's dive right in. Last week, I pre-recorded a show dealing with the news that was filtering out of the first annual SOL, S-O-L, Foundation Organizations Conference out at Stanford, and that put on by Garry Nolan. And boy, it seems like it was a really important event, and there's still people deconstructing it, talking about it. We gave you some links, but at the time, the best reportage I found was after I had recorded that, and that was by our good friend Micah Hanks, but I'll get to that in just a second. So you can, of course, go to our website, anomalyarchives.org, and find links to all kinds of stuff related to the 501c3 nonprofit community charity mission and goals of our organization there. And you'll find links to our Flipboard, where we aggregate all the news that's fit for print, and much of it is not. Lots of great stuff since our last show, last week and the week before that. Very interesting article from over at bigbentimes.com. Mysterious Marfalites capture attention on social media. And as I was saying, the best reportage I've seen so far on the SOL conference out in California is by our good friend Micah Hanks, who was in attendance and has interviewed all the particulars involved in that conference, from Garry Nolan to Christopher Mellon to the other organizer whose name eludes me at the moment. But we'll be commenting more about that. But other headlines that we're not really going to get to: Popular Science shuts online magazine in another sign of decline. Oh, you know those magazines, Popular Science, Popular Mechanics. They've been around forever, always touting some new technology or method for tinkering, inventions, and so forth. A lot of other fun stuff over at the startelegram.com. A little bit of mystery: Lake Worth monster, other cryptids to be explored on Nature Show. I believe Texas Parks and Wildlife is doing, and actually some of the other Texas magazines, I think, are investigating people like Lyle Blackburn, who's pictured there, who are interested in cryptids and weird monster reports from around the state. Some great news in the UFO archive world. There's this article, UFO Archives, an underrated and vanishing resource, over at ufocusnz.org.nz, straight out of New Zealand. Oh, there is a petition to sign if you're interested regarding the Integratron out near Landers, California, near Joshua Tree. Apparently, developers want to build a massive community out there that the locals who are trying to preserve the integrity of the Integratron are not so happy about, because they feel it will diminish the nature of the nature out there that draws people there, that drew the contactee who created the Integratron, etc. Good friends Eric Harrelson and Joseph Laycock, who have written a book on The Exorcist and the influence of the movie on people's beliefs, have a new article, or there's an article about them over at religiondispatches.org called "What Happens When We Use Horror Movies to Interpret the Real World? 10 Questions for the Authors of The Exorcist Effect." And that reminds me, I hope I brought this up. Maybe I didn't. I bet I can bring it up really quick, though. They're going to be our friends, Joe and Eric, are going to be doing a presentation at the nearby Curious Arcanum. And I'll have to post a link to this, but they're located at 5924 South Congress Avenue, number 23. 23! Imagination is the only weapon in the war against reality is the tagline over at the House of Curiosities. And yes, our friends Joseph Laycock and Eric Harrelson are going to be doing a presentation on December 17th on their book, The Exorcist Effect, Horror, Religion, and Demonic Belief. So that should be very interesting. Looking forward to that. So meanwhile, lots of other articles that you can find over at our Flipboard for the Anomaly Archives, including an extremely powerful cosmic ray hit Earth. We don't know where it came from Science Alert website, as well as Kurt Collins' The Saucers That Time Forgot blog has a UFO information and research sources and sites. And there's an interesting article from GreekReporter.com that good friend Roberta sent to me. I was unaware of this. Apparently, the Greeks had a hydraulic telecommunications system. It's not as exciting as I thought, but at the same time, it's like, wow, I'm pretty intrigued to have learned about this, but there's a link there to that as well. So yeah, moving right along to some follow-up on the Saul Foundation conference. This wonderful blog, Getting Spooked, author Tanner F. Boyle has been covering the UFO scene for a little bit, and one of his more recent articles from a week ago, State of the UFO Union, the Saul Conference, Military and Intelligence Religions, and Further UFO Ponderings. He was not in attendance at this conference, but as the rest of us are doing, trying to piece together what happened, he points out a number of interesting things, which is, of course, the fact that here is this conglomeration, this grouping of former military, former intel, current and former government insiders, as well as all these academics and a lot of experiencers coming together for this conference. And he, is kind of sounding that warning bell that a lot of us have been worried about for some time. The fact that there seemed to be so much effort from people who've been in those organizations that we haven't always wanted to trust when it comes to their quote unquote truth and revelations about the UFO phenomenon, how much they seem to be directing the dialogue and the narrative in a sort of perception management sort of way that is very concerning. But he does go into some interesting bits of information, including, I did not know what the source of this leaked photo was, but this is, of course, a leaked photo from the event that made the rounds from a Twitter account, Area 503. And among the other photos that they posted to social media, which attendees were asked explicitly not to do, was this photo of the program, Friday, 17th November. There is images of the lineup of speakers and their talk titles for both the Friday and Saturday 18th November, that you can find linked to through this Getting Spooked post. As this writer says, among the familiar faces of the UFO sphere are a couple of religious scholars, Jeffrey Kripal and Diana Heath, aka Pasulka. I've held the work of both in high regard, but their recent turns to providing religious validation of sorts to the in vogue disclosure crowd that is made up of countless military and intelligence personnel gives me pause. On a recent podcast appearance, Heath spoke of one of her subjects, entrepreneur and NASA contractor Tim Taylor, aka Tyler D, from American Cosmic, and the new book, Encounters. He goes on to say, within, she related one of the more disturbing concepts to grace my ears in recent months. Taylor considers humanity the lower tier of a hierarchy of beings, God on top, angels below God, quote unquote, off-planet beings below angels, and quote, factions in the intelligence community below the NHI, and then normal humans at the bottom. Now, that's actually in the book here, and there was a reference to one of the speakers invoking this at the conference. I believe it may have been military contractor Carl Nell. Yes, the hierarchy of beings has since been reinforced in Heath's other interviews and was even brought up by former intelligence official and military contractor Carl Nell in his talk. There's a link there to that. Oh, I'm not showing that. There we go. Yes, here's all what I was just talking about. I can think of no greater distillation of the current push for slavish devotion and submission to the intelligence community on the UFO topic, but the inherent dangers of this go unspoken. Heath's speech at Saul was titled Transcending Timelines, Uniting Science, the Humanities, and Intelligence in UAP Scholarship, perhaps indicating that she is willing to go along with the IC's guidance in the topic to a certain degree. Now, I will say I did just finish reading Diana's book, Encounters, Explorations with UFOs, Dreams, Angels, AI, and Other Dimensions over the course of this holiday week. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think it's actually better. Personally, I found it better than her previous work, American Cosmic. And it's definitely, I think, takes the UFO discussion to the next level in some ways. I'm not going to give a full review of that right now, but I definitely want to recommend it. Of course, following on that, I have been reading Jacques Vallée's Forbidden Science, Volume 5. And, of course, every time I read Jacques Vallée's books, his Forbidden Science journals specifically, they are just loaded with so much behind the scenes information. They're always very important reads. There's the image of my 4 hardback editions of volumes 1 through 4, and I do not yet have a hardback edition of volume 5, but I do have the paperback, which yes, I was just showing, and I gotta say, I was saying to a friend that I feel like as he goes decade by decade forward, and now with this more recent one, the journals for 2000 to 2009, this of course encompasses when he was working with NIDS and Robert Bigelow, and so we're getting closer and closer to the present, and it's almost as if we're approaching the singularity. And I was joking with my friend that I have this feeling like by the time he publishes volume 6, it will manifest, it will represent the singularity. It's I don't know how to explain why I have this feeling about this. I'm not necessarily literally serious about this, but it's just so amazing. You can learn so much by reading his Forbidden Science journals. And in a way, I've been really reflecting on how it feels like this Saul conference was a sort of a reverence for Jacques Vallée and the result of his decades of effort. Obviously, it's the result of many people, and specifically Garry Nolan. But the people that have come together are largely the people that Vallée has been interacting with for years and for decades. And so I think it's kind of the fruit of his labors, even though, as was reported by multiple people now. He's got up and grilled one of the presenters about the nature of the upcoming Schumer-sponsored UAP Act. I'm getting the name wrong. I'm so bad with this stuff, but it's really it's a very strange point in time that we're at here, and there's just so much more going on. But as I said, I'm really happy with and proud of Micah Hanks' reportage on this. You can listen to his podcast about this. The Saul Foundation, Academia's cutting edge UAP think tank. He was there. He got to talk and meet with all these folks. Of course, he's been interviewing them for the debrief and other outlets, including his own podcast, for quite some time. He has a new one out, of course, the last day or so, in which he's interviewing Danny Sheehan, who was also in attendance. So very interesting stuff. You can find out more about that at the links that we'll be sharing. And of course, some of the big news is he's reporting on also is the attempt to derail that legislation. So apparently this author, Christopher Sharp over at liberationtimes.com, has an article, Black Friday, Republican leadership takes axe to UFO transparency legislation. Multiple sources have told Liberation Times that the Schumer rounds Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena Disclosure Act is under severe threat from Republican leaders within the U.S. House and Senate. So he broke the story back on the 24th, and Micah Hanks expands on it in his article. UAP Disclosure Act receives pushback from lawmakers on Capitol Hill as bipartisanship, as bipartisan fight for transparency continues. And of course, Micah credits that person for breaking the story. But he points out, rather interestingly, that the two people who are pushing back, leading the charge against this, also happen to be the people in Congress who have the most connection to military aviation industry money. That seems pretty interesting. I think he even has a chart here that shows some of that lower down in the article. It's quite long. House Armed Services Committee members received millions from the defense sector in the 2022 election cycle. Mike D. Rogers, a Republican of Alabama, being one of those. And that's one of the points in this article. Quote, for one, they're saying it duplicates the DoD Arrow's activities, unquote, Grusch told Rogan during the podcast, naming Representatives Mike Rogers and Mike Turner among those who are blocking the UAP Disclosure Act. Grusch also emphasized Turner's proximity to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, the headquarters of the Air Force Materiel Command, with a deep history in aerospace innovation in Dayton, Ohio. Notably, Wright-Patterson has also been the home of Project Blue Book, the Air Force's official investigation into UFOs throughout the 1950s and 60s. Great article over there at thedebrief.org. Micah went on to say, according to data made available by opensecrets.org, the website of the Center for Responsive Politics, a nonprofit, nonpartisan research group that tracks money in U.S. politics, Rep. Mike Turner's largest 2023 to 24 campaign contributors are listed as miscellaneous defense at over $62,000, followed by defense aerospace at over $46,000. During the 2022 election cycle, Rep. Mike Rogers was the largest recipient of funding from the defense sector by a wide margin, according to data made available by Open Secrets, see below. Similarly listed among the largest contributions to Rep. Rogers in 2023 to 2024 were, quote, miscellaneous defense at $121,000, down significantly from the $282,000 he received in the previous election cycle, during which the largest contribution from a single contributor had been $60,000 from Lockheed Martin. Interesting. Very interesting. Some other good reportage on this, if you really want to dive into all of this, is being done by The Good Trouble Show with Matt Ford. I am only recently familiar with this news outlet, but they've apparently Matt Ford was also in attendance at the conference, and so he gave his blow-by-blow with the what really happened at the UAP Saul Foundation conference, which was posted a few days back. And this newer one, exclusive interview with Dr. Garry Nolan on UFO UAP work and the Sol Foundation. And apparently he also collaborated with these two writers who, this is a screenshot of Matt Ford in the center and the other two writers who contributed to this quote unquote bombshell from the Daily Mail. I know. The Daily Mail, really? Are we talking bombshells from the Daily Mail? Well, let's just say, you never know where good, interesting articles are going to come from, but over at dailymail.co.uk, exclusive, CIA's secret office has conducted UFO retrieval missions on at least 9 crash sites around the world, whistleblowers reveal. They invoke talk of the Office of Global Access, the OGA, a wing of the CIA, saying that they've played a central role in collecting alien spacecraft since 2003. Sources tell the Daily Mail. So the article goes on there, and there's a link to that video that I was just showing you a link to. Should be interesting. They also have coming up the good show, what the hell is it called? The Good Trouble Show with Matt Ford. Sorry. They've got this upcoming show where they're going to be speaking to Danny Sheehan. And of course, as I was saying, Micah Hanks has already talked to Danny Sheehan about all of this, and you can find that over in this the Fight for UFO Transparency, the UAP Disclosure Act Under Fire, over at micahhanks.com. And while I haven't finished listening to that interview, it's very interesting. As much as I thought I knew about Danny Sheehan's amazing history, he really apparently he's indicating that he's been aware of these kinds of crash retrieval programs going much farther back than I thought he had been involved in this UFO stuff. But there you go. Well, what else is going on? There's so much more in the world of the weird than just UFOs. Some of you who followed me know that I have an interest in the mystery hum phenomena. Well, there's getting a lot of global press now because of this reports out of Northern Ireland. I'm going to get the name wrong. Omag's mystery hum keeps Tyrone residents awake. Council officials are looking at calling in noise specialists in the attempt to locate a mystery hum disturbing residents of a co-Tyrone town. People in Omagh have been reporting a persistent low-level hum or buzz in the town for several weeks. There's a video that accompanies this. You can check that out, but it's been getting more and more news coverage about this. Switching gears really fast here. Something I came across and posted is these tweets from, who is this fellow? Ethan Mollick, professor at Wharton, studying AI innovation and startups, democratizing education with games and AI, speaking via WSB speakers. And there were some quotes that a conspiracy theorist friend had posted, and I was pretty struck by them. And they are along these lines. Quote, "We are at the KT boundary for information. Archivists should lock down the pre-2023 information world. What comes after is going to be different. One side effect from AI is that the corpus of human knowledge from mid-2023 on will have to be treated fundamentally differently than prior to 2023. A huge amount of what you learned or think you know about how to evaluate images or text is no longer valid, not an exaggeration." Those were the quotes there. Maybe that's hyperbolic, but it really struck me as being true. We'll see. Time will tell. That fellow's website is oneusefulthing.org, and we'll hopefully be checking that out more in the future. Meanwhile, so occasionally I read dead media like Texas Monthly Magazine. This is their November issue for 2023. And they have an article titled The endless death of John F. Kennedy. After his assassination in Dallas, our perception of what happened has been shaped by the pop culture and subculture it inspired, by Sean O'Neill. Now, as I see happen all the time, the online version of it has a slightly different title, The Endless Assassination of John F. Kennedy. Nonetheless, it's the same article, and I was a little surprised to see references to some UT professor that I didn't know had necessarily any direct connection to the JFK assassination, but mainly the author is, of course, rightly stating people's perception, especially so many people who've been born after these events, let alone after 9/11, let alone more recently than that, really just don't have a clue or experience with why this is so meaningful to people. What they know is largely shaped again by pop culture. So they mentioned some of my favorite movies, and they talk about virtual reality experiences of the Sniper's Nest in Dealey Plaza, all kinds of interesting references. But like I say, there's references to this UT professor, Professor Pennebaker, who the article says, Pennebaker is no fan of Stone's film, quote, a shameful rewriting of history, unquote. He says, I'm appalled by that movie. Still, he understands why JFK resonated with anyone who needed to assign meaning to chaos. It constructed a conspiracy theory that was really digestible, that gets into the collective memory of the government cannot be trusted, Pennebaker says. Well, if it looks like a duck and walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, some of the other references to Pennebaker, that clinical remove is by design. After all, a lot of people in Dallas didn't want this museum. In 1988, a year before it opened, James Pennebaker co-authored a study that revealed how rates of murder, suicide, and heart disease had spiked among Dallasites in the year after the assassination. Local luminaries, including Tom Landry and Mary Kay Ash, called for the school book depository to be leveled. Arsonists tried twice. Dallas's collective memory was one of shame. 25 years later, Pennebaker had found that 79% of Dallas natives still believed the world held them responsible. Well, we'll provide a link to that. It's an interesting article, and the point is made, and I take it pretty well. Oh, see, gosh darn it, I got these out of order. But so something that else, jumping back, sorry, to the Saul Foundation or conference that was mentioned that I had no reference to was Blue Border. And here's the page from Reddit. The Blue Border system, the human control system you use when the intelligence source is non-human. Well, as mentioned in the new Forbidden Science journals, apparently Blue Border security was brought up at the Saul Foundation, and I believe John Alexander said, no, we're not going to talk about that. But on page 23 of the new Forbidden Science Journals, Volume 5 of Jacques Vallée, there's an entry about from his February 2000 journals where he's talking about being at a NIDS meeting. And it reads, over at NIDS, discussions have been raging about the Media Committee, a group of experts, including my friend Peter Banks, with access to surveillance satellite data. Physicist Eric Davis would like to join on behalf of NIDS, an idea that John Alexander finds unrealistic given the level of secrecy. Citation. Recalling the structure of special access programs like our remote viewing work at SRI, Hal Puthoff reminded us that special access programs, SAPs, were not really above top secret. They're just compartmentalized in a special way. In that vein, John Alexander spoke mysteriously about a form of secret access called Blue Border, which he claimed, quote, can get people killed, unquote. Did JFK violate a blue border? I'm not suggesting that. Anyway, I'm going to close on that. There you go. All right, folks. Well, thank you for listening. And you can find and watch or listen to all the archives of this by clicking through over to anomalyarchives.org. And we'd appreciate it if you did. In the meantime, let's go out with some fantastic RPJ animated imagery. Good night, everybody.